From there, you actually include the layer ID. So in my example, I just have one layer, so it's layer 0001. Set the map. You can make it clickable, which essentially means that you can actually click on one of the features to get an info window. And then if I keep scrolling down here, what I have is the simple event listener where I'm listening for a click event. And every time a click event occurs, I have some logic in here where I'll show you shortly as far as an admin panel where I allow the features to be edited. But for the most part, for just visualization, you just have an info window content. And as part of the event, you can actually get that info window HTML, which is part of Maps Engine. And from there, you just display it. One other little event listener that I added was just for the Maps Engine layer. Once it's actually changed, I zoom down to fit the bounds. So essentially what this does is when the application loads, I grab all the features and zoom down to that location.
Dave, can I ask a question at this point?
Yeah.
So far, it looks like you're not using the Google Maps Engine API at all. You are simply using the version 3 of the JavaScript Maps API, correct?
Correct.
So as you view this page, you've got one layer, it looks like, one layer coming from Maps Engine, and you're loading the JavaScript library from Google Maps. So thinking back to that conversation about page views and map loads, can you just describe what's happening on that front in terms of your quota?
Sure. So there's actually a couple quotas that are happening here. So as part of this, one quota that I would have is the Google Maps API for Business, which essentially is my the whole JavaScript application, right? So this is my base map. It gives me things like geocoding, directions, etc. All of that is managed within a separate quota. Okay, so what that refers to is Google Maps API for Business. And it's measured in page views or page loads. And what happens is when I load this application for the first time, it just counts as one page load. So as I zoom in, zoom out, no additional page views are being incurred. The second quota is actually Maps Engine. So for this example, I essentially have one layer and one map. So I'm basically using two map loads as part of the application, using that Maps Engine layer for visualization.
And this is a public-facing application. Obviously, there's no access control on this, so this is not counting as an internal application.
Exactly. So this is going towards my public map loads quota.
Got it. Thank you.
Yep. Okay, so before I continue on in the code, why don't I quickly show the administration panel, and because a lot of the code is actually combined, so I just want to make sure as we get through certain areas that I can talk to that. So if I click on the administrator login, what this essentially is doing, if you remember from last week, Alan spoke about OAuth. I'm using client-side OAuth 2. Authorization. So what's happening is it's going and it's actually asking permission for my account. So I'm logging in as Dave Overstrom. I have access to this map's layer and this map's data source. I have editor rights to it. So I'm actually able to get to this page. And you can see up on the top, I'm getting back an access token. With the client-side approach for OAuth 2, this is a short-lived token, so it's by default set to 1 hour. So right now I've got essentially an hour to work with this view before I need to actually go in and refresh my access token. You can see from kind of the UI, it's exactly the same code base. The only thing I've done within my code is added some properties where I can actually edit the attributes. So why don't I just quickly zoom down here to one of these features. And what you can actually do is just click on one. This will bring up the info window, and you can actually see that now they are text boxes. So it might be difficult to see the actual attribute information here, but I've got my name, description, store hours, phone number, and then the manager. So I'll set him to the manager for the store. In addition to just the attributes, you can see I actually added a green marker to the map. And what I can do is actually move the store. So if the location's changed or it's actually moved, I can actually just drag the marker, bring it to a new location. click Update Feature. And what that's actually doing is using the GME API to update that feature on the fly. So now you can see it's been updated, and on my map I've got a new location here. Again, all the attributes are changed as well. So with that, why don't I go back into the code and kind of talk to how this GME API is working. Okay, so one of the first things, I showed this on the main page, is where I'm doing a spatial query. And what I'm actually using for that is I'm making a call to a Maps Engine servlet that I've created that uses a service level account to do queries against the Maps Engine API. And the reason I'm using a service account is that I don't want to prompt the user for any type of credentials, right? This is a shared table that has store location information. I want to be able to query this without asking the user for his or her credentials. So what I'm actually doing here is I'm specifying a distance, and I'm doing a query string, which you can actually see as st_distance. It takes a geometry, and it does a spatial query based on a radius. And you can see as part of this JSON query, I'm just calling a Maps Engine servlet. Now, if I jump to my Maps Engine servlet, what I have here is essentially a few global variables. One is a service account email. So what this essentially is doing is this service account is acting on behalf of the application and querying Maps Engine for store locations. You can see the scope that I'm using is read-only. You want to use the most limiting scope that you can as part of this, just as stronger security type measures. And here's the actual table that I'm querying. So this is the table within Maps Engine, the ID for the table that has all the store locations. As I continue down, I essentially, within my GET request, I'm setting up my Google credentials. So I'm using a library that we have for Java that allows me to quickly create credentials as part of OAuth 2. So, one of the big kind of watch points is don't try to do this yourself. We've got libraries to help you out. So, just leverage these to handle all the OAuth 2 authentication. I'm essentially creating a credential, and with that credential, I'm able to get an access token. So from the access token, I'm then able to query Maps Engine for features. So you can see I'm querying that table. The query parameter is that spatial query, right, where I'm getting the st distance or st intersects and querying by a radius. I append that to the URL, so I'm just encoding that query, and then I just make a simple Maps Engine request, and that's coming back, and I'm able to display it on the map as little markers and zoom to that location. So let me just see what this is doing. So with that whole workflow that I just showed, client side is making